stop there. That's near death.
Mm.
And you've self-inflicted that.
Yep.
You put yourself into that. You've in your eyes failed.
I initially didn't start this journey of self-improvement for myself. I initially did it for 3 people. The person I was with at the time that broke up with me, I didn't look like a man. I didn't emit masculine energy. And the reason why she didn't want to be with me because of that. And it was also my parents, my mum and dad.
Tell me, who is James Roffey?
Me as a person is about mastering the art of resilience, trying to carry on no matter what life seems to chuck at you. At the age of 7, I was scouted by Charlton Athletic. 17, dream shattered. We don't think you're tall enough. Weirdly enough, obviously I'm 6'4" now.
Ultimately, where did you end up weight-wise?
It was diagnosed as anorexia. It then manifested itself into bulimia. My parents had to sign a do-not-resuscitate order in front of me. I was in high risk of going into cardiac arrest. And then the conversation got up about, have you thought of its worst case scenario? Like in my head, it's like no one's gonna sleep with my wife. Like just a silly way of thinking. So I just flat out refused. Like no, that's not an option. And it was like, well, that's the only option, or we separate.
There's a light bulb moment that comes where it's like, I want to do something to change it, but I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
What advice would you give? Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Been looking forward to this.
Mm.
I like the way this is built up as well. There's a real desire for you to be here.
Yeah.
And feel that.
Yeah.
And the whole extraordinary story that goes with it. But tell me, who is James Roffey?
Oh, that's a good question. I class myself as a high performance and mindset coach, but with me, it's more, my story is about, me as a person is about mastering the art of resilience, overcoming adversity and trying to carry on no matter what life seems to chuck at you. That's, yeah.
No, fair play to you, mate. And massive respect. I know a fair amount already, and I'm going to learn a lot more from you now. But can we start with where that resilient piece really kicked in for you, which, if I'm right, was at 17 years old, unless there's a piece before?
Well, unfortunately, it didn't kick in at 17. Obviously, that was obviously
That's the bit I know about that,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's like the power of the mindset, isn't it? Obviously, had I have had the tools I have now, if I'd have had the setback that I had at 17, I think things would have been very, very different. Obviously, I didn't have any form of resilience. I didn't have a good mindset to deal with adversity. And obviously...
Oh, I hear you.
Yeah.
And I want to know what you've done to build those commitments. But so tell me where that sort of started from 17 point of view, though.
Yeah, so obviously at the age of 7, I was scouted by Charlton Athletic. I started playing football as a goalkeeper at the age of 4, trying to emulate my dad. My dad obviously was a goalkeeper, made it to like semi-pro, and when I started watching him play, he was like vets football, so like over 40s. It was like watching him pull off saves and everyone hugging him and like the camaraderie. It was like, I want that. Obviously, like I've always looked up to my dad, and he kind of took me under his wing, and I was like his protege, so to speak. So I started playing at the age of 4, and then quickly started playing for older levels than what my age was. So I think at 4 and then 5, I was playing at under 6s, under 7s. And then I went to a tournament, and then I got scouted by Charlton, and it was just, we want you to come and play for us, come for a trial. And that was the next 10 years of my life taken up. I used to have like an agreement with school that I could leave school early to go to football, which as a kid, I was Mr. Popular because of that. It's obviously like the whole flex of, I'm leaving school to go play football. Like
proper jealousy, right?
Yeah, big time. So yeah, I used to train 3 times a week, and then obviously matches on a weekend. I was obviously living down south at the time. I was living in Maidstone, and I used to go to school in Ashford. So it was like Ashford to London. Massive commitment from my parents. Obviously my mum used to take me on during the week, and then my dad would take me on a weekend for matches. And that was it. That was like my whole upbringing was surrounded by football. That was it. I didn't know any different. And every year my contract got renewed. And I mentioned this recently. It's obviously like when you're at that age of 7 to 17, and you don't really have any perspective for the world. You don't take things as, well, what if that doesn't work out? What if they're lying to me? What if they're over egging the pot? You just take everything as like, you're good enough. You're good enough. You're good enough. All right, I'm good enough. Like, you don't have an ego as such. You believe what everyone's telling you. And I just thought that this was it. At 13, I got made captain, and I got to train at Bisham Abbey, which was England's training ground at the time, their coaching facility. Obviously, I can't remember what it's called now, and playing on the pitches next to, like, the claim to fame was like Alan Shearer and Michael Owen and people that you'd watch on telly, and now all of a sudden you're working with the England goalkeeper coaches next to them. It was just like, wow, this is like so cool. And yeah, and I guess it just reinforced that I was going to make it, and it was just a natural, just waiting to reach the age where you sign a professional contract. And then at 17, dream shattered. We don't think you're tall enough. Weirdly enough, obviously I'm 6'4" now, but I was a late developer, and that will become clear as to why I was a late developer later on. But yeah, obviously being a goalkeeper, you have to have certain attributes. Back then it was more stature rather than modern day goalkeepers, like you've got to be an outfield player essentially. So my height was my biggest weakness, and I didn't tick a box essentially. So it was, thanks for your time, go back to what you know. That's what I got told.
There's nothing you can do about that. You can't grow yourself if you're given some advice on skill level or commitment. They're all things you can work on. To be told that, you know, it's a hard stop, right?
That was really like, I lost my granddad like a few years prior to that, at the age of 11, and obviously that was my first real like death trauma. But obviously I had all these other things going on, so it was, the blow was lessened because I had structure and routine, and I had to be at certain things at certain places, and obviously I had my family around me. Obviously fast forward to 17, and the one thing that I always had was now not there. Doing the deep dive now, I think I lost my identity in an instant. I didn't know who I was anymore, and what I thought I was within my social circle, I wasn't anymore. I was the footballer that was going to make it, and then all of a sudden I wasn't. It was like, well, who am I now? And that was incredibly difficult for me to cope with.
What was the fallout from that?
The fallout from that was I internalized everything. I didn't talk about my problems. I didn't talk about how I was feeling. So my biggest thought was I'm a failure. The commitment that my parents made to me, they spent 10 years, and I can't imagine how much money, and it was for nothing. In my head, it was for nothing. My grandparents used to come and watch me, and to me it was like it was wasted. And off the back of that, I left school the following, like 6 months later, I left school after my first year of A-levels because I wasn't good enough. I was never academically clever. Despite going to a grammar school, I was definitely the bottom of the 10%, you top 10% in the country to get to one, and I was definitely the bottom percentile. And I think I kind of obviously gave up in my head, didn't really try. And because my grades weren't good enough, it was, you can leave. So I had to go to college. So it was the rigmarole of leaving my friends behind. So all of a sudden I'm now a failure to my friends. I can't keep up to the same level as my peers, therefore I'm a failure. And then when I started college, so that would have been end of school year, so what, July? And then in September, I went to college to get enough points to go to university. And then a couple of months after I started college, my nan was diagnosed with cancer, and she passed away within 2 months. By the time it was diagnosed, it had already spread everywhere. So it was like palliative care and Macmillan nurses. And because I was at college 2.5 days a week, seeing the rate of decline from her, I think that was the final straw for me. I just shut down. I felt like I was out of control of everything. And strangely enough, obviously we're talking over 20 years ago now, there wasn't, none of the soaps or none of the news or none of the newspapers spoke about eating disorders. The only person that I knew and that my family knew was Karen Carpenter from the Carpenters. She obviously had an eating disorder, but I guess how I was wired and my routines from being physically fit, I ran with my old routine of running. And obviously I was trying to run away from all the stuff that was probably going on in my head. But it doesn't matter how far you run, how fast you run, you're taking it with you. And I took the running to an extreme, and then I started to cut back on what I ate. And that gave me that runner's high, that endorphin, that feeling of something, because I was just emotionless to everything. I wasn't happy, I wasn't sad, but running and then the cutting back on the food gave me that adrenaline rush that actually made me feel somewhat alive.
A really unhealthy combination. Ultimately, where did you end up weight-wise?
Initially, obviously, it was diagnosed as anorexia, as I had that for about 18 months. So we're now talking 18 and a half. And near enough, as soon as it was diagnosed as anorexia, it then manifested itself into bulimia. So I lost the high of running and cutting back on what I ate, and I also become too ill to run at the same level as what I did before. So I gave up, all in, all out mentality with me. And then I decided to make myself sick. The first time it ever happened, my parents were out for dinner. Obviously, I was chronically hungry all the time with the anorexia, and I kind of, again, in my head, fouled. I couldn't even keep having anorexia because I gave in to my urges. And I remember eating everything in the fridge, and then the guilt, and then the feeling of doing what I did, that then made me feel something again. That feeling of like, oh, I can eat this, but then not keep it down, therefore I'm not eating it. And then that's the next cycle started of, I'd gone from anorexia to bulimia. And that's when at 21, I was 5.5 stone at 6'4". Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I mean, you're sitting here now ripped and looking how you absolutely should, but 5.5 stone.
I was passing out at home, and then I woke up in hospital, and I was on multiple drips, and my parents had to sign a do-not-resuscitate order in front of me because I was in high risk of going into cardiac arrest. They obviously weighed me, and obviously that's where I was like 41 kilos. And it was at a point where I was high risk of going into cardiac arrest, and my potassium and phosphate levels were that low in my body because of the chronic making myself sick, that if I'd have gone into cardiac arrest, they wouldn't have even attempted to revive me.
So stop there. That's near death. And you've self-inflicted that.
Yep.
You put yourself into that. You've in your eyes failed at all these different things that are then almost like you've been trying to run away, and you've closed all the doors off.
Yep.
That resilient piece comes in now. I mean, was it something that someone said? Was it a realization of literally the last parts of what you just described? Where did you bounce and then try and crawl out of where?
I bounced at about 24. So I was 21 then. And after that stint in hospital, I was never sectioned under the Mental Health Act. I was nudged into an eating disorder unit. I couldn't be an inpatient because I was the only guy, and there couldn't be mixed sexes on the ward, which is there was a common theme with my whole eating disorder. I was the only guy that I ever interacted with, which was pointed out to me by a therapist, which wasn't actually good because that opened up Pandora's box of like, so am I not a man? Am I not a... Yeah, so that's another story. But I think after being in an eating disorder unit I was in there for about 6 months. I think because I'd started to, I was made to eat. The control was completely taken away from me. And obviously that's what it was. I was trying to regain control of my life being so chaotic with all this trauma that I was regaining control with something that was inevitably going to kill me. And so the fact that control was then taken away, I was sitting around a table, I'm not force fed, but fed food, wasn't allowed to leave, was monitored, couldn't go to the toilet after having that food. I think after 6 months of actually eating very small amounts compared to what I eat now, it was like the negative rose tinted glasses came off, and I saw myself for what I actually was. The body dysmorphia had gone, and I saw myself as a guy that looked like he was going to die. And that's when all right, I need to, for the first time, I think I've reached that point where I was like, I need to change. I don't know how to change. I can't do this on my own anymore. Because prior to that, it was like, yeah, it was all right. I can start. I'll stop tomorrow. I'll stop next week.
In denial.
Yeah.
And a deliberate kind of acknowledgement that you needed help and you wanted help.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful message, because people I know in a sort of personal capacity, and people that have sat and I've filmed with have said that the only way that you can get yourself help is when you acknowledge that you need help. And I guess that was the moment for you.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's a message to take for anyone out there that is either struggling themselves or has loved ones and friends. It doesn't matter how much support and resources and money that you can chuck at things, unless they are willing, they have reached that point where it's like, I need help now, because otherwise they're not going to take it on board. They're not going to try and implement changes. So I think it's, changes will only ever start when you reach that point where I need more. I want more out of my life.
I'm conscious of time, because you and I could do a deep dive now, definitely. But if we take where you were there, to know, anyone that's watching is going to see you looking a picture of health, right? It's in your eyes as well as in the physique.
Yeah.
So it's very clear that you came out of that.
Yeah.
You decided you're going to fix yourself. You got help. To now do so much to want to help others. I think that's what drew us together. I want to open that up. I think there's a really important message there. And I mentioned Stephen Corker earlier and other people that have spoken to me about the lack of a safety net, where someone that at 17 was probably fighting fit, glint in your eye, world at their feet, dreaming of playing in a big stadium and so on, and then it's shattered and there's no one, despite all the effort that your parents would have made and any friends and so on, you internalized, you told yourself you're a failure. And we know there's some really terrible stories of people that haven't made it through that.
Yeah.
What more needs to happen there in that environment? And what are you doing to help people now with that empathy that you've got?
I think in terms of, well, if we take football at the start, I know there's a lot more support going into things, and there's a lot more of the education as well. So it's not just, you're not all in with football anymore. Some clubs now, it's like if you're not at a certain level with your like academic ability, then they will release you. So obviously they're trying to give people the tools and the skills that if football doesn't work, they actually have some kind of backup plan and qualifications that can see them into another career, which obviously is not the one they want. But if you go all in with something and it doesn't work out, and so you know the stats when it comes to professional football is 0.01%. So there's a lot of rejection there. And if you've got nothing as a backup, yeah, you've heard the stories, and obviously I'm another one of them.
Yeah, and maybe there's an expectations element that needs to somehow be brought in by club level, maybe even parents and kind of support network, and the lads themselves. I say lads, you know, kids will there'll be plenty of girls now that successive lionesses and so it just needs to be managed. It
does, and I think that's the difficult thing, because it's obviously it's who enforces it, because there's so many people that need to step up. The individual themselves, the network around them, the family, the club. It's everyone needs to do more. It's quite hard to have them all in a room and sit down.
Yeah.
So, and obviously that's where you look at the stats. The stats when it comes to obviously mental health problems, they're not improving. So whatever's being done currently isn't good enough. If it was run as a business, it would have gone bust by now.
No matter how you're going through life, this is a business conversation. This is a parenting conversation. At some point, you're going to take a knock, however severe that is. And then how do you prepare for that?
I think you prepare for that by doing the hard work within yourself. Obviously, that can be from, there's multiple areas to focus on. Obviously, with what I teach, the pillars are obviously training, and that doesn't have to be within the gym. It can be sport-based.
So that's just physical?
Yep. Obviously, you have to be physically fit. There are so many attributes to, obviously, like flexibility, mobility, your heart, your confidence as well. Obviously, how you project yourself. Obviously, if you're skilled in an area, you're going to feel more confident. Probably going to look more confident. Nutrition as well is another important thing. Obviously, I'm going back into like the PT days of like your training in nutrition, but then more importantly, it's your mindset and also your lifestyle. So mindset is obviously like how you see yourself, how you see others, how you see the world, and obviously then your lifestyle, it's who you hang around with. What relationships do you have with these people? And are these people that, there's like a campfire analogy, that you're sitting on one side, the campfire represents your goals and who you want to become. The people on the other side are your family, your friends, peers, and you need to make sure you need to do like a deep dive in that around that pit to see who's putting logs on that fire and who's putting water on it. That's the polite way of saying it. You need to make sure who is actually there to help you.
Who's filling your cup and who's being a drain.
Exactly that. Yeah. Exactly. It's such an important thing, because you're almost fighting an uphill battle if you have people around you that aren't actually helping you on that journey. You can utilize their network and obviously spout ideas off other people. If they're just going to ridicule you and put you down, they're not the people that you want in your circle.
There's someone watching or listening to this now who's inspired by you, right? Again, looking at you as someone who's got themselves together, pulled themselves out of a place that, you know, I can't even imagine. What advice would you give to them where they're overwhelmed? They're looking in. There's a light bulb moment that comes where it's like, I want to do something to change it, but I don't know where to start. Yeah. What advice would you give?
Again, the easiest way to say it is to start small. It's obviously it's that 1% better.
But is there something you do? What I mean by that is, we both know that could be eat something healthy. That could be go for a walk with the fresh air. Or is it a combination of all those things? But I suppose what I'm really asking you is, probably in a more personal way, is what what do you reflect on that really worked for you? Was it actually building your strength back up, and or was it, you know, what worked for you?
What worked for me, I initially didn't start this journey of self-improvement for myself. The honest answer, I initially did it for 3 people. The person I was with at the time that broke up with me, because I thought that it's not like I didn't look like a man. I didn't emit masculine energy, and the reason why she didn't want to be with me because of that. I never got closure on the situation. I don't know why she did what she did, but I took my own closure, and that was how I saw it. And it was also my parents, my mum and dad. The amount of pain that I put them through. I can't say that I regret it, because it's made me who I am, and it's made our relationship even stronger to this day. But for them, speaking to them multiple years after I'd recovered, to actually listen to the pain and the worry and the anxiety and the point where they nearly broke up because of me, for them to see me now knowing that I'm good, that was the biggest catalyst. So I know I'm gonna sound like a bit of a hypocrite, because you want to change for yourself, but if you can't change for yourself, is there someone in your circle that you can change for? Whether that's your parents, whether that's a friend, to try and be an example to someone else.
Having spent time now looking at you on social media and so on, why the wrong male role models are rising to the top?
There isn't really like a model that young men can follow, like a pathway that men can follow. I think it's over the last probably decade that image of what a man is has become very muddied in the water. So there's not actually a definitive, if you ask 1 million people what a man is or what makes a man, you'll probably get 1 million different answers. So there's no exact method. And I think, unfortunately, if you want to use Andrew Tate as an example, there are probably maybe 20% of what he says is actually spot on. The way that he delivers it is awful. So it's obviously like the message, some of the messaging is exactly what's needed, the way that it's delivered. And I think, unfortunately, when you look at social media, it's whoever shouts loudest gets heard.
Yeah.
So it's not about the message itself, it's just how you present yourself. And I guess if you have following and you have money and the bravado, if you are a young teenager that's looking up to someone, you're going to look up to someone that's got the Lamborghini, that's got the women, that's got the houses everywhere in the world, as opposed to you're not really going to have the level of perspective to go, is what he's doing going to benefit me, or is it just the fact that I like his life? I think that's what it is. I think people want to emulate the life. I don't think if you ask a lot of people, would you like to be Andrew Tate, you'd like to have the things that he's got. And I think that's whereby I think there's definitely a mishmash of messages that are being put out there. And obviously if there's no real structure to follow, people are just going to latch on to people that have got a following.
We've talked a lot about how you felt about failure and coping with failure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to elaborate on that, because so much of what you took internally in process that led to really big mental health challenges and physical challenges. I want to know sort of how that evolved and what your relationship is now with failure.
I'd always said that failure was like my kryptonite, but then when you look at it, everyone probably has that with failure. No one wants failure. And I think for years I took failure as there's no way back. There's nothing that was wasted effort, wasted time. But I think as I've evolved my thinking, realizing that failure isn't actually the end of everything, it's just that pathway is now shut. But it doesn't mean you can't deviate and find another way and take 80% of what you've learned and just try it in a different direction. I think, like you said about the failure thing, though we spoke about the eating disorder, and obviously there was obviously when I got recovered, I then went through a cancer scare, and I went through 3 leg breaks in 8 months as well with football, which was again the physical pain. And I think but the worst one of all was obviously finding out about my infertility. It's like every man, every person's dream is to have a mini me running around and carrying on the family name, so to speak. And I think the biggest failure that I ever felt was hearing that news in November 2023. Obviously, I got married in the summer, And we'd been on our honeymoon. We'd been together for about 4 years, and we did things. We had the same ideology when it came to marriage, house, kids. We rented and had a house together, and then we moved in with her mum after marriage to save money for a deposit. And it was obviously, we were looking for the house, and then we were obviously talking about kids, and we decided to both get tested, I think, just to make sure that everything was good. She got her results back within like a few days, like a text message, and I got the phone call that I needed to go in to have a conversation with my GP. And I know my brother had issues conceiving, and I think he went through a round of IVF. So it was like, never in my worst imagination did I think that I was going to get the news that I got. I just thought, well, if I have difficulties, there's always options. Whether it's whatever, we can always do IVF. It's fine. We'll take money out the deposit fund if we need to, and that was it. And it was on a Monday morning, and then I think on the weekend prior to that, we went out for dinner to her favourite restaurant, and then the conversation got up about, have you thought if it's worst case scenario? So I was like, of course not. Why? You worry about it twice then. And it was obviously that if it is worst case scenario, it's she wouldn't want to adopt. She'd want to do sperm donor. And obviously we talked about earlier about masculine pride. When it's like chucked in your face, I'm like, no. Like in my head, it's like no one's gonna sleep with my wife. Like, just a silly way of thinking. So I just flat out refused. Like, no, that's not an option. And it's like, well, that's the only option, or we separate. And it was like out for dinner, waiting for main course, and then that's been chucked in my face. It was like, and I don't think I slept until that Monday. And it was almost like I don't know. I think I worried myself into the results. And obviously the results, I found out that I am infertile due to a genetic defect I was born with. I have I think it's a Y chromosome attached to one of my X chromosomes, which rendered me infertile from birth. It was just the fact that the life that I had previously, like all the chapters and whatnot, I'd never been in a position to want kids, to therefore not be able to get anybody that I was with pregnant or actually be tested. So yeah, didn't get the news until I was 34. And obviously off the back of that, unbeknownst to me, my ex-wife had checked out. So within a week or so of getting the news, she had started talking to someone else, which I obviously didn't realise. I was oblivious, because I was fighting my own demons in my head, thinking, like, without sounding like a woe is me, it was like, how much more crap is going to be chucked my way? And I dealt with it in a way that, like, all right, it's fine. I can deal with it within myself. But again, it went back to my parents, because I'm not going to give my parents a grandchild. My brother had my nephew, and obviously, so it's like I was relieved that they were able to have a grandkid through my brother, but obviously from the results, it wasn't going to be from me. And that was like I felt worse about my parents than I did about her and I did about me. I was bottom rung of the ladder. And Christmas that year, I'm massive. I love Christmas. I love the just giving presents. I don't care what I get. It's more just seeing other people's faces. That Christmas, I wish Boris would have cancelled it. I've done another year of the shutting everything off, because I absolutely hated that Christmas. It was no fun at all. And then I was then told to stay down at my parents' for the new year to have therapy, to become a better person and a better man and a better husband, to unpack all the stuff in my head. And so I did, the old happy wife, happy life. And unfortunately, I never went back home. A month turned into 2, into 3, and then in March I found out that she was having an affair. And that was it. Obviously I confronted her about it, and then it was a character assassination of who I was, what I was trying to do. And it was just a very, very confusing, dark and unnecessary way to end what was a very quick marriage. Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
I want to, you've got that, that's fresh and quite raw from not that long ago.
No.
What I want to get to is that, are you at peace with what you were presented with as a failure, it was completely out of your control. It's brought me back to the point where you didn't make the football team because you were too short, which was out of your control. So everything you just articulated, I think, rounds a picture of failure and how you've been made to feel a failure, and the work that you've done on yourself to again come back. But right now, is there a piece with you that can actually see that was not a failure?
Yeah, 100%. I think, like you said, I think it's almost like I had the opportunity to go back to my 17-year-old self, just weirdly enough, 17 years later. So that was
Sure.
yeah, and obviously that's
a very different version of a maturity.
Exactly that. And I think the realization from all these things was that although I didn't get where I wanted to get with football, the habits and routines that I learned as a kid to be conditioned from a physical perspective, I parked that for 10 years with the eating disorder, but I picked it back up when I got back into the gym to work on myself physically, and obviously that in turn helped me mentally. And I used that. I did extra sessions in the gym. Again, was it right at the time? It was. Well, I don't have a business anymore. I don't have a marriage anymore. I was living in my parents' spare room. I had a lot of time on my hands, and obviously the devil makes work for idle thumbs. So it's like if I'm in the gym and I'm bettering myself from a physical perspective, it's going to stop me overthinking about the situation that I was currently in. But that then in itself, I then did a big deep dive in understanding that I used to have a business called James the Mental Health PT. That was my job when I was still an online coach, and it was obviously like, well, if that isn't going to be there anymore, who am I? And then the recalibration of my purpose and my why. And obviously it was to be, I'm more than just a PT. I'm more than just getting people in shape. Like I've done that for 6 years prior. Like I can do that, but I think I would be devaluing the journey that I've been on had I just have stayed doing that. And I think that's where obviously like the mindset and the high performance stuff and the optimizing your life comes into play. And obviously, so the benefit of all that trauma in that relationship led me to what I'm doing now. And strangely, within a month of all that situation happening with my ex-wife, I met someone new who I'm still with today. And yeah, I think sometimes you need to go through things that the realization was we were never going to be right for each other. When you look at what you have now, not that you should ever compare, but there's a lesson in itself. Like that job may not have worked out, but because that you got made redundant there, you've got this job now, and that job is infinitely better than your old job. So net positive. And I think that's the how I took away from everything was like, if you just keep going, eventually something will be better than what you had before. You were
powerful message, isn't it? Yeah, just keep going. And also I love the fact that the work you're doing now is bigger than you. So much of it comes back to that. You know, you brought your parents into it. They must have suffered so much at different times, but they also now see you thriving. And so if you use the analogy of a bit of a peaks and troughs, right, which your life is full of them. They're with you on both of them. Right now, you're not necessarily on the peak. You certainly could say, but you're definitely not in a trough.
No.
And I think that resilient piece means that actually what is a peak? Because at any one time, if anything, we're just trying to even it out, aren't we? And
exactly
stay pushing, stay moving forward.
No,
I appreciate you articulating that.
I appreciate that.
Using that word success, there's a part of me that can, it's a success that you're already sitting here, if that makes sense from what you've come through. But I just wonder, with your perspective maturity now sitting here, what your definition of success is.
For me, I think success would be that you've been able to, you understand your why and your purpose, and you've created a life that reflects that. I think that would be success.
Stop there. That's beautiful. Isn't it? Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And on that same train of thought, where this goes back to that, I called it a crisis in young lads, and I've spent a lot of time around the Centre for Social Justice who produced the Lost Boys report, which I've talked about quite openly, where there's, whether it's the actual parenting and kids growing up without a father figure, so that sort of like role models missing, so then they gravitate to socials, and then they gravitate to whoever shouts the loudest. Young version of you, with the maturity perspective resilience piece that you've got now,
Yeah.
which could relate to someone watching you and seeing you as an inspiration, seeing you as a role model, what advice would you give them on working on themselves now?
That the sooner you do it, the sooner you will find your path in life, and you won't potentially go down paths that are not going to serve your greater self. I think that,
Yeah. So sitting here in the present, January 26, what are you doing to help people? Because I know that you're a proper force for good. I've seen your social content. You've built a really substantial following through doing that.
Yeah.
Putting your story out as part of your lived experience that flips into the sort of the narrative.
Yeah.
How are you helping people? What are you doing?
How am I helping people now? Obviously, like I've been working like individually with men, really, but the majority of my audience is men, because obviously the lived shared experience, I have a lot more relatable empathy for men. So obviously I launched Ultimate Body and Mind like August 24. So since then I've just been trying to grow it and scale it to a point where that I become hopefully one of the, when you think of a high performance and mindset coach, and you're potentially struggling with life and you're out of alignment with the person that you want to be or used to be, you'd think of me. And obviously my big push this year is to try and tap into corporate world, to be able to try and revolutionize the corporate well-being structure within companies.
So what you've got there is ever-changing, but a culture that potentially is archaic in the sense of don't show weakness. So this, I'm not kind of labeling it. I'm just saying that even if you go back to how I'm 48, so the generation that I grew up in was man up.
Yep.
And certainly man to man. Which again, I'm going to use that term role model to you. You're changing that. You're someone that can be strong. And show strength in your whole demeanor and your articulation, but actually be vulnerable and be totally disarming, which allows me to do that as well. So firstly, I think that's brilliant what you're trying to do and aspiring to do in the corporate side of things. Are you in any way seeing that culture changing? Are you in any way getting a vibe from the people you're speaking to, maybe the messages you get and so on, that what you're doing is helping men reach out and ask, because men are not very good at doing that?
No. They're not. I think from a coaching perspective on a one-to-one level, it's definitely helping. Corporate, I'm finding it incredibly frustrating. It's like a big barrier when it comes to the corporate world, because it's obviously, I think unless the people that I'm dealing with have probably had personal experience of trauma, mental health issues, they don't really see why. Because at the end of the day, it's someone else coming in that's costing them money, and they can't seem to see the results because they just look at it as the money up front, as opposed to the results that can come off the back of it. So frustratingly, corporate world, frustrating. Well, on a one-to-one basis, obviously, where you really start to work. I won't say, I'd like to think they become friends, but obviously there's like a client mentor like relationship. Obviously, I get to know them inside out, so that I do become very attached, and obviously they become attached to me. They understand the stories, and I think going back to what you said earlier, I think I've always thought, as probably a good number of years into my recovery, that if I talk about my problems, I'm taking charge of it. So there's no taboo anymore. There's no, I can't talk about that. Like, I'm actively talking about it, and that in itself is like active therapy. But the one thing I find that talking with men is that they've all been through stuff. I think if I give them something first, I'm almost giving them a deep, dark insight into my life, so they feel obliged to give me something back. And I think that's how the relationship's formed.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And actually, just on that, because you related that well to yourself, giving and being open for other people to come. Anyone watching you now, right now, genuinely be envious of your body. If they have any aspirations to be fit and so on, I want to know what you do. You're a PT in helping countless others, but you'll have your own routine. You'll have what works for you. So what works for you?
A very structured routine. I think that's what it is. Like I've relented on that since I've met my new partner, because I realised that not everything is. I can't live in the gym all the time, And obviously,
So you have done that.
yeah, big time. I think I've almost, and I used to justify it by saying, well, it's better than my old habits, which technically yes, but it's a little bit of a cop out. And I think for a while I didn't really fulfill. I'd mastered the art of resilience when it comes to personal battles. I think in business, I don't think I pushed myself enough because I was limiting myself to my routine in the gym. So I go to the gym like 4 times a week, and I play football twice a week. That's enough. And obviously, but I've done that when people ask me in the gym, like, how long does it take to get how long will it take me to get a body like that? And it's like, average of 4 days a week for the next 11 years. And they're, I can't be bothered with that. It's like, well, there you go then. Like, there's no magical drug, or there's no magical drug that can get you that. It's just dedication. And it's more like, how much do you want it? It's as simple as that.
I'll put the work in.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
And obviously nothing, well, how many analogies can you fit in there? But nothing worth having comes easy.
No, I think there's a conversation that I could have with you that would double or triple the one we're having, but time is against us. But I knew I was going to enjoy this conversation because I think we said it, that man-to-man conversation that wouldn't have happened 10 years ago, let alone 15, 20 years ago, is really important to me. And yeah, I 100% see you as a role model and an inspiration. Like, you know, what you've gone through and that resilient piece that you describe yourself, you're the epitome of it, and you're helping so many other people with what you're doing. So thank you for making time. I know you've come a fair way down with middle of January with snow where you live. You've come to film me. Right. Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's obviously it's always going to be worth the effort. Obviously, we've been talking for a while, so when I got the phone call, it's like, yeah.
Well, it sort of starts now as well. Yeah, what I mean by that is crystallise a conversation and something we've both been looking forward to. But let's see how we can help each other now, because that's the big part of what I love to do. James, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.